Hello and welcome to B2B Tech Talk, the podcast where two experts in the field of technology and business come together to discuss the latest trends and developments in the world of B2B. Join Enrique and Jose Enrique as they dive into the most exciting and innovative technologies driving the B2B landscape forward. Get insights, tips, and practical advice on how to leverage technology to drive your business success. So sit back, relax, and get ready to join the conversation on B2B Tech Talk.
Welcome back to this new episode of the B2B Tech Talk podcast. And what happened this week? What are the news that we have? And I think the main highlight of last week is the whole conversational AI and this new Bing and the Google response and how that all thing affects business in general and B2B business. And I thought that we might just get started by discussing or going through a little bit what happened last week and a little bit of seeing the future, and then going back to the topic that actually we want to discuss today, which is networking. So what do you think? What were your highlights for today, for that last week?
Yeah, for me, last week was pretty not really major news. Oh, well, Microsoft announced the new Bing stuff one day after Google kind of announced theirs, but without demo, without beta, without anything. It looks promising. I have been using ChatGPT a lot to create copy for websites of my personal projects, or to create, for instance, something that's very good at is like when I have an Airbnb, as you know. So when a guest leave, I have to leave a review to just say, please write a short review for this name who was like 10 days at my place. Oh, he writes a small, nice paragraph, copy and paste in Airbnb reviews, and that's it. So that is save a lot of time. So one is always different, so it's nice. For a couple of emails on stuff like a little bit more formal, I have been using it, but I have to rewrite it because it's too plain. So for that, it's not that good. At least it's not my style. I have my communication is a little bit informal, so it doesn't fit that well. What I've been using a lot is Midjourney. I'm using it for my NFT project, so I'm saving a little bit of money with the Illustrator, so I don't need an Illustrator for this particular project. I'm creating all the art. 7,707 NFTs, and all are done in Midjourney. It's a combination of like creating the art in Midjourney and upscaling it with another AI on my local machine. So that's going great. And also all the marketing assets and all the marketing art for the podcast, for the NFT project is done in Midjourney.
So you are doing
ChatGPT.
You are doing the upscaling in your local machine? How is that?
Yes. And I downloaded one model to do upscaling. It's a Python model, so I'm not doing the upscaling on my local machine. Yeah.
Okay, cool. It looks good, or it's kind of like
it looks good. It looks good. I mean, I'm only upgrading for 512 to 1024, so it's fine. It's not that much. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Oh, not bad.
And what AI are you using though? In your day-to-day?
What I'm using in the day-to-day? Well, actually, I had a couple of interesting use cases at work. So I got access to this new Bing thing. Full disclaimer, I work for Microsoft, so I don't think it helped, because I sign up with my private email account. But anyways, I got access to the preview, and I must say it's actually pretty interesting. It's fascinating. And what makes it even more interesting is when you install the dev version of Edge that has this integration that was also shown in the demo. And this integration, for instance, that you mentioned, that emails, you know, the emails that are being generated are a little bit too formal. Well, there you have the chance. So let me go here. I created some text a while ago, and you have 3 options. You can create something that is, actually you have 5 options. So you can make something that is professional, you can make something that is casual, enthusiastic, informational, or even funny. And even if you choose kind of like a dry topic, it goes in that direction. It's not that it's super funny, make jokes or anything, but it goes in that direction. And then you have 4 formats you can pick. You have paragraph, email, blog post, and ideas. And you can also choose what kind of length for the content, for the content that is going to be generated, you're good to have. So you can have a short content, medium or long. And I just create a document about the topic that we want to talk about today, because I was doing some brainstorm, and I was trying to figure out how this thing is going to create content for that kind of for networking, for business and networking. And I was a little bit hesitant, because I thought, well, obviously, if you write networking, I think the first choice was going to be really like IT related subjects, like how do you build a virtual network, how you build a subnet, how you connect the subnets, that kind of thing. But actually it got the business networking pretty well, and it wrote a pretty decent essay. It's not bad. I would say it's about good 1,000 words long. Just it's pretty good, and have some, I mean, it has a kind of like a light touch to it. You know, at some point, for instance, it says, oh, you might think that networking is a waste of time, money, and energy that could be better spent on improving your product, service, or website. Well, think again. Networking is not only a powerful way to generate leads, referrals, and sales for your B2B business, but also a craft that must be developed and honed over time. So that's not that bad.
That sounds pretty natural. Like it writes better than ChatGPT, though.
Exactly.
It writes better than ChatGPT. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the setting was with funny, blog post, and long.
I see. Well, that is a good segue into the real topic of the podcast. So networking. Let's start with the question: which businesses need networking? So it's obvious, as a person in the field, you need to network. That is a given. So we are not talking about personal networking, personal brand, like creating your network or whatever. Is like business networking. So what type of businesses need networking?
Well, you know what? Let me step back a little bit first. And when we finished last week, we said we wanted to do this B2B tech podcast. And we are beginning with networking, which sounds business networking. That doesn't sound really tech related. But I think the original discussion was, what do we actually meant by tech? And I think tech is anything that enables you to bring things together. That's why we decided to say, okay, let's do something about networking, because I think a really important pivotal part of the business is networking. You know, either networking with suppliers, networking with potential clients, how you build your distribution channels, even networking inside of your own business, how you connect different units between your business, how you relate with different people. So connecting with people is super important. And I think it's a kind of tech in a sense, because there's people who is really good at it, like they excel at networking. There's people who's really bad at it. And I must say, in my own experience, I'm not exactly someone who is naturally gifted with the ability to network like crazy. You know, it's something that I recognized in my professional career that is important, but it's a skill that I realized that had to be built over time. And I think for many businesses, building this network, especially in the B2B space, because in the B2C space, you have the chance to just spray and pray, as you would
Yeah,
would say.
the old spray and pray.
Exactly. You just go crazy, and then you just run a marketing
Ads.
campaign, and hopefully
Yeah.
hopefully people will buy. You have a conversion rate and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But in the B2B space, networking is important, and actually there is a system to it. There is a methodology to it. There's ways to do it. And I thought, well, let's talk a little bit about it. Let's brainstorm a little bit, and places to network, and how you do it, and how you structure that, and what are important or best practices, and just to invite people who is watching this or listening to this to think about networking as a fundamental part of the toolkit of things that they have to keep really real sharp in order to be successful in the B2B space. So that's the background, at least for me. So what do you think?
Well, if you ask me, like, networking is a big part of the business. Like, for me, sales is also a kind of networking. It's like, you need to know people, you get to get the leads, you get to talk with the leads, you get to do the whole sales process, and in the process that you have for your industry. It is all different. So for me, that is also a type of networking, because you have a network of partners, you have a network of clients, etc. So you basically are networking with them. Like, you have to ping them once in a while. You have to manage their accounts if there is some problem, or if they have some support needs, etc. It's all, let's say that networking is like, whenever there is interaction between a business on another business, or one representative of one business together with other representative or another business, so that for me can form a network there. So it's a relationship, basically. So the network is one of the definitions is a set of relationships between entities.
Yeah,
that is also a business relationship.
I think
network.
I think a really interesting aspect of networking is that the persons you are connecting with, you don't really need to be best friends with. Usually those you have a strong link. If you think a little bit about network theory, those connections you have who are really strong, that people that you are seeing on regular basis, there's not really a lot of value that you get out of those, because, well, these people, you're seeing them on regular basis, you stay in touch, you know what they're thinking, you're following them. So I think the value, and this is not only what I think that's common knowledge, the value come usually from those connections that are the so-called weak links in the network. So people that are acquaintances, so you know them, you had a contact with them, and then at some point you come back to them, and either to activate the connection, or because you knew that they are pretty good at something, or they have some specialized knowledge about certain area of business, and you want to get in touch with them. Perhaps they can help you to solve something, or to get to know someone else. They can make an introduction, or they could serve someone else who actually wants you to make an introduction for. So that is something that is important, because oftentimes people think, well, I need to be best friends with everyone. And if you have a network of 200, 300 people, you just can't manage that amount of people. There's some social psychology, social science theories that said that the maximum amount of connections that you can reasonably keep in your head is around 100 people. And that to me feels like a lot of people. So
yeah, it's a lot of people though.
Yeah. So beyond that, you just have some people who are familiar with you, but still the connection can create value for both of you. And that's another thing that I think is important, is that the connection create value for everyone. So it's has to be a win-win situation. But there's a lot of power in the whole networking story. Yeah. So
Yeah.
The main thing, what do you go for networking? What do you do for networking?
Well, I don't. That's it. So business-wise, I don't have to network because I'm a user experience designer. I'm in contact with our customers. So I have interview with our customers. We test stuff with them. We get their feedback, whatever. But it's not networking. So I don't have to do networking per se for the success of the company. Or that may be a bit wrong, because if we don't do that research with our customers or potential customers, then our product don't get the quality that they the maximum quality that they can be. So that can be defined as kind of networking, because we definitely have to look for them, contact them, onboard them in the tests that we want to do, explain everything that we do. If they are not using our product, then we have to explain our product and figure out some use cases near their industry, so they can also understand the value of the product. So it's not sales, but they need to understand what the product does, so they can test it a little bit better. It's not like blind test. But that is a kind of network. It's a very little scale. Like we have like a couple of partners that we are testing with officially, but it's not like big networking. And definitely it's a lot of work. Like the colleague in my team who is arranging that is like have to be scheduling meetings and sending emails and sending reminders on figure out timelines and explaining stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of work. Yeah, as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of work. I think another aspect that is very important of networking is, especially in the B2B context, is understanding or having a mapping the organization you are connecting to. So if you are in sales, or you are a service provider, or someone who integrates services, for instance, or trying to sell a new product, new SaaS, then makes sense to map in some sense the organization of your customer, or of those people who are working with you, who is going to enable you. And that's something that there is not a clear playbook for that, but I've seen in my experience, there's people who's really good at that. There's people who they go like almost like an octopus. They spread through all the organization and they connect with a bunch of people. And there's people who is very, they search through one point and they try to drill down that point and get everything done there. And actually those that I see that are really successful, I mean, I've seen both models. And the model that is more successful is the one where people connect with a bunch of people inside of the organization they're targeting for whatever reason they want to target. And they have connections all across the board. So they have connections with all sort of stakeholders, decision makers, technical people, salespeople, procurement, all these people, they bring them on board, and they have a really clear definition about or a really clear map of who is connecting to whom, what are the different roles, how these roles are changing from fiscal year to fiscal year. So it's pretty interesting. There's people who have they have a methodology to it, or at least they are willing to go and do the hard work of mapping everyone. And then there is obviously the social factor. There is people love to hear the names, and these people who have this ability to penetrate, so to speak. The word penetrate might have a negative connotation, but I think in this particular case, I can think of a better word. They are pretty good at remembering the name of every single person they contact within that organization. So they have like, it seems like they have a database of names of people that they want to talk to in the other company, and they have a description of every single role and how people, what is the interplay among people. So I think building a map of the organization you're trying to connect to, keeping all those names in place, making the connections a little bit personal, so not too formal. I think even in countries like Germany, I mean, we are based in Germany, which is, in the popular perception of many people, a place where business is pretty formal. Yet these connections tend to be very personal. People build these, they're weak links, but there is chit chat in the conversation, and there are kind of like regular touch points that people do. And I think that helps in the long term to build these connections.
It also depends on the context. I can remember an anecdote. A father of a friend of mine, he was a stockbroker back in the day.
Mhm.
On the biggest contracts he got signed when he was taking the clients to the Oktoberfest.
Mhm.
So that was the best time to sign contracts in that context. So yeah, it depends on the context. For other friend of mine who is in sales, is in a company that sells very specific software for aeronautics and stuff. They are basically two important people that you need to know when you're selling software. So you need to know the technical people, so technical lead, CTO, whatever, and you need to know the decision maker. So who's gonna pay for it? So who's gonna say, yes, we need this, we're gonna buy it. So because usually in the small companies, like it all is managed by the CEO, so all the financial decisions are managed by the CEO. You may have technical people there, but they have to ask if they can spend that kind of money in software. So basically, you have to convince that the technical people to use your software, and together they have to convince the decision maker to basically approve that. So that's the two more important people in the sales process, at least in sales networking.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that is super important is that it's a long-term game. So it's not a game that is different again from the B2B aspect of things. It's a really long game in that you begin the relationship today, and if you are really lucky, you might close the deal in this quarter, but perhaps you close the deal in 2 quarters, because there is a lot of processes, there's a lot of stakeholders that you have to get on board. You know, you mentioned rightly so the technical stakeholders, you also have the decision makers, so you need some sort of like sponsorship from the leadership team, whomever it is. And also, if you're selling, say, some SaaS software, which is the thing that I have in the top of my mind, then you also obviously need to have on board who is the business unit who is going to use that software. So you need to have also the buy-in of all these people. And usually, this networking process might come, bottom up and bottom down, that is in both directions. You need the buy-in of the end user. So if people know, oh, you know what, this thing is going to make my life super easy, then they might influence also the sponsorship, at the executive level. They might influence that to actually make the movement a little bit faster.
I have to disagree with that, because in real life, basically, unfortunately, the end user is not that involved in the decision process. Like the decision process is like, is the software help us solve a problem, how much it costs, and how much it costs to implement it. So those are the three questions that a company have in mind when they're gonna introduce a new software as service, SaaS or whatever, in their enterprise. Is like how much it costs, what problem it will solve, and then they have to wait between the cost on the software, so on the solution. Basically, that the question. But the end user, they will get a memo and say, okay, from next month we're going to move from target process to Jira or whatever.
Well,
then they have to move it.
I've seen everything. I've seen everything. I've seen top-down decisions on software, especially if it's something that aligns with the strategic the strategic decisions that the company is going to make. So if it's a strategical decision, then usually it's a top-down thing. But there is software, for instance, there are cases that I've heard of or I've seen of HR software, for instance. HR software, people in HR or people who do taxes, right? You have the buy-in of that department that usually that's a fairly small department. And then you have a couple of people in that department that say, oh, we really need that software, right? And then in that particular case, they might actually influence a decision in the other direction. Again, it depends on budget kind of decisions. It depends on also the leverage that the people who work in the business unit have. And those are things that people who are in this space, trying to network and connect within one organization, some people understand that pretty well. Some people understand, you know what, I'm selling to a business unit where these people, the end user, has a say and has actually leverage and can influence the decision of the executive sponsor. Whereas there are other cases like, let me give a more a case that probably fits that what you said. If we are discussing here the software that we're going to use in a call center, nothing against call center agents, but usually they will have much less leverage in the conversation than, say, the legal department of a big organization, right? So the legal department usually has more weight in the decision. I really need this software, and they can actually build a case of why they need that software. So might make sense to bring on board some of the end users of the software. However, in the case of a call center or customer support, you might kind of talk to some middle management there, and that person, that will be enough to get the conversation started. Or you just get the conversation started from the top down because, you have some dramatic savings that you can do with your software or whatever it is. You can reduce the average time to respond, whatever KPI you're going to use. So yeah. I think it depends. It really depends on what are you selling and whom are you selling to? So yeah, it's a complex thing. I don't think there is not a simple one size fits all kind of thing, but there is a methodology to it in that you can ask the question, well, who are the stakeholders and how much weight they will have within my organization? I think that's probably the right question to ask. Instead of just going and in generalizing and saying, well, I have to go and talk to management because management is going to make the decision anyways. Yeah. And I think there is, I think it depends a lot on the kind of business model that you have. Because if you're selling something that is a license model, if you have a license model and you sell software, and then you convince the top management that you're cool because you get your money for the year, and then you're good. But if you have a pay-as-you-go business where consumption is important, where churn rate is important, then you better make sure that the people who is in the front line actually is using your software. Because if your management goes back and say, well, let me see what are my OPEX, where people is spending the money, and I don't see a return of investment, or I don't see that people is actually using this software, then most probably you're going to burn. So I think there's a lot of things that you have to consider, the business model, who you're selling to, sponsorship. But I think that goes beyond the whole networking thing. It's just the whole complex story of how you sell, how you bring business forward.
One thing is like networking for sales, other is networking for employees. Actually, if you go to a job fair or you go to a university to capture new employees, etc., there's also kind of networking. What people do in LinkedIn is networking, but it's personal. We say we don't gonna talk about it. But basically, there are different type of networking. So mostly B2B software as a service happens in events and conference and fairs where companies book a booth and do their show their present their software to potential customers. So this is also a very usual way pre-pandemic, of course, of doing networking. Here in Germany, there's a lot of fairs for different topics. A construction fair is the biggest one. Here in Germany is a book fair, also the biggest one. We have a couple of technical fairs, but they are not that interesting, I guess. But mainly, I don't think we have. I mean, the big companies organize their own fairs and invite a bunch of people to showcase their product. When before the pandemic, they did. So, what have you seen people like doing networking in fairs or in this kind of events?
Well, the thing with networking and in these networking events is that everyone is doing that and they are not memorable. So if I've been there and you have a networking event and after the whole day getting, at least in the past, you got a bunch of business cards. You didn't know what to do with all those business cards. So you get to your hotel room and you throw them all on the table and then you don't know, you forget who you were talking to be honest. Now it's getting slightly better because now you can connect with people using LinkedIn. So if you have your phone, you have this QR code, you can scan that and at least you know who you were connecting to and you can exchange a couple of messages there. And then so you have the context at least where you met this person. But in general, I think these fairs where everyone have the same objective, or these networking meetings where everyone is doing the same thing, everyone is pitching something, everyone is selling something, it's kind of hard to differentiate and especially to create a connection with someone. Because at the end of the day, you are building human connections. So what I think works the best is to connect with people in places that are not actually meant to be networking places. It's like as counterintuitive, as counterintuitive as it might sound, it's probably the best place to, it's the thing to avoid. Especially, if it's a technical conference, for instance. If there is some, and it doesn't have to be like software technical, it could be in German you would say fachlich. How would you translate that to English?
Fachlich.
Yeah, subject matter. It's a subject matter conference.
Yeah, subject matter. Yeah.
It's a subject matter conference. Yeah. So
it's specialized.
It's a specialized. It's you have a subject matter, it's like, I don't know, it's law or it's taxes or it's marketing, that kind of thing. So it's really focused on an area of knowledge that is useful for business. That's probably the best place to connect with people, because you connect in the context of the knowledge exchange. People don't feel that you want to sell to them, and probably you shouldn't sell to them. And the last thing that you should talk about is the product that you're trying to sell, if that's your goal. Again, we are talking here about networking, it's just connecting with people. So that's definitely an excellent place to connect if you are into connecting offline, right? If you're into connecting online, obviously you have LinkedIn, you have Facebook groups. That Facebook groups is one that is actually very surprising to me, because I thought that for many business or enterprise kind of software is not a place. I thought in many cases, well, you might want to go to a Facebook, a LinkedIn group. And a LinkedIn group, to me, at least had this flavor of being a more professional space. where people actually are into business, they're serious and they have like a certain reputation and name, and they are more enterprisey, so to speak. But I've seen that in certain areas of knowledge, Facebook groups could be really interesting. And actually, they are very active. They are super active. The community actually embraces a lot of the questions that people have. Is really helpful. They're willing to connect to each other. And one thing that is really remarkable about the Facebook communities, which is also similar in LinkedIn, is that usually there is a real person behind. So you can actually see who is the person who is behind the profile, and you have a little bit of sense what's the human behind the facade, the business facade that you are connecting to. Also, depending on the area you're working on, Quora might be interesting, Reddit might be interesting, you name it. It depends on the community, but I believe LinkedIn and definitely some Facebook groups, depending on the area of business that you are, might be really interesting if you are into networking offline. Twitter probably is also a really big one. If you want to also go into this direction of being a thought leader, which is, I think, also something very important in the area of networking, to like this that we are trying to do now. So doing this podcast, the intention at the end of the day is to elevate your image, create content. That's also a way of networking. So you don't have to do networking also that is symmetrical. You can connect with people, like you are the hub in the middle and you're connected to a bunch of people. So if you say you have a podcast, or you have a YouTube channel, you have a blog, all these things help you to create connections that over time might help you to accomplish some other business objectives. And again, the main thing I think is to position yourself as a specialist in the domain, and from there you can actually expand to any other areas that you might actually have in mind.
Yeah, where you're sliding in the personal branding, personal networking stuff. We are talking about the B2B stuff.
Yeah, but it's related. It's related.
It's kind of related, but not that much.
It's related. Opinion. It's related because at the end of the day, companies are made out of people.
That's true. That's true.
Companies are made out of people. And so if, let's say you are a solopreneur, you are launching your SaaS and you have a really small team. Well, then probably some of these tactics are going to work for you. If you are building a software to serve haircutting salons, well, you want to be an authority in the processes that hair salons have. You need to write a little bit about it. You need to position among this community, as someone who understands, who knows what the pains are. And you can do that one-to-one by going to an event. You can do that by connecting people in an online social media, but you can also do it by creating content.
Yeah, that's true. But there are a different type of business network. Like, for instance, affiliate networks. Like, you have a business and then you put a program, an affiliate network program, where you can actually do share revenue. Is if your partners bring you business, you give them back a kickback from that business that they brought you. So it's like affiliate network, like Amazon have one. A lot of companies have something like that, and it's very successful in some cases. There is also the partner network. If you are a B2B vendor, for instance, let me figure out an example here. You're producing lights, right? You're producing lights. When you need basically, you're not selling directly to consumer, you're selling to construction companies who are doing big buildings, big office buildings. So that is your partner network right there. So it's a different kind of network that the one-to-one. If you are a software as a service, then you may have integration partners in your network that actually integrate on how do you say, suggest your software to potential customers that they present, they talked about you. So there is a lot of different business cases for networking that people do right now. Affiliates is one of the biggest ones that if I remember correctly. There are different ways also to do affiliate, but the good thing about affiliates is like it fits basically a lot of businesses. So because at the end of the day, you are increasing the amount of leads coming at your door. And you can, if you are good with math, you can integrate the cost of that lead generation through the affiliate network into the price of the product. So that is something that actually people do. It's not like it's you alone searching for leads. It's a bunch of people bringing you leads to your door. Of course, you have to have tracking. You have to have a very specific way how the revenue share or the kickback works. For some clients, that is not ethical enough. If you are bringing them, then you're getting a cut or whatever. So there are different aspects of this. But the thing that I like is it fits a lot of business models.
Yeah, I think network are pretty much universal in that almost anything that has to do with human relationships ends up being mapped into a network. And in
Yes.
that regard, you see the emergence of networks almost anywhere. I like a lot the example you mentioned about networks of partners, because I've seen that firsthand. And sometimes I even think that could be a business model, like to have a partner network as a service. If someone out there is thinking about it, because I think networking is something that most people and companies are struggling with. So it's not that it's common knowledge that everyone is doing it and everyone is good at it. I think there is a lot of room for improvement in many companies. And something that I've been noticing lately is that if you see companies that have managed to grow and to scale at a global level, usually they have very strong, very well-defined, very well-managed partner networks. Whereas companies that do not have scaled that much, they do not often. They have some sales force, they have people who have their sales targets and they try to get there, but they don't have this organic traffic, if you will, that they have this organic channel that goes and spreads around the marketplace with partners that help them to reach more customers. So I think probably this is a really good business idea for someone who wants to build something. I don't know how much it would take to build a network or a partner network as a service. And I don't know if there is I guess there is a real market for that because there is a pain for that. But I don't know if it's so clearly stated that people understand that they might need this and they might see what is the value behind something like this.
Yeah, we need to brainstorm around that. But the other aspect I was thinking when you were talking about the partner network is like actually you can also extract value, not only subjective value from your network, but actually business from your network. Like you can your partner network, to be in your partner network, you have to be certificated for instance, and for that you have to pay the company to be certified, or you have to buy whatever the certification needs, or you have to be evaluated to be in that partner network. So Actually, you can extract also monetary value from or revenue stream from that network as well. It will not be as big as your main business, or I don't know. I don't
I think it depends on the
so.
leverage that your brand has and how important it is in the marketplace. There are
Yeah.
certain certifications that partners will get no matter what, because it's important. If if you are a big player in technology or in services and you offer a certification, I know many coaches that they take these really expensive certifications because that opens a bunch of doors for them to go to a bunch of companies, and actually these companies are expecting them to have the certifications. There are many, I don't know, I'm thinking about agile coaches, for instance. Agile coaches, there are a bunch of these certifications out there that is a must-have. If you don't have them, you are not even going to be considered. It doesn't matter how much experience you have implementing these processes. It just doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. You need to be certified. So yeah, that might definitely be another channel. I don't think it's probably for any company that is big enough. It's not that important that it's critical for the business, but it's probably a nice source of income, and more importantly, it's a way to propagate the way the company operates. If you have a certification that entails the way your company operates and what technologies you're working on, what is your methodology, what are your processes,
best practices.
Exactly, best practices. Then you can leverage that to propagate that in the market and make it the gold standard. So in that regard, also networking and certifications is a good marriage, and things working pretty well.
But anyway, I think we can wrap it here.
Yeah, we can wrap this up.
Yeah. So yeah, that was basically, if you are a business, sit back, relax, and think about the ways that you can actually leverage the power from a network in your business. That will be like looking for new customer, looking for new leads, affiliate network, etc. On just think about it. It will definitely help your business. Like if you start like introducing networks into it, or getting your business into different kind of networks. So that will be interesting.
Yeah, I think one of the most important takeaways of the whole conversation is that you have to be intentional about networking. It's not something that happens just randomly, but it's something that you plan for it, you allocate time for it. The same thing that you do for all the other things that you do in your business. You have to be intentional and building these relationships. You have to think if you want to do peer-to-peer networking, if you just want to meet someone in a conference or something, or you want to connect online, or you want to build your network by being an influencer in terms of having a voice in the industry, in the space where you are working, and then making people come to you. And then the other thing is to also understand the company, the organization you are connecting to, build these maps, not just go ad hoc and trying to understand and hoping that the god of network help you to connect to the right person, but instead build a map that allows you to understand how to achieve your goals when you are trying to connect with that other business that you're trying to close a deal with. So those are a few takeaways. I think that there was a bunch of interesting topics that are emerged in this conversation. I think it's fun to have this, and I think with this we can just wrap this up, and then the next week we are gonna come up with another topic about the B2B technology space.
Yes. Oh, remember, you can contact us in the email, which is down below in the video right now. And we are open for suggestion which topics you want us to cover, or with conversation you have to have. Well, also, if you have a private question, feel free to ask us. It doesn't have to be what you write, doesn't have to be in the podcast. It's also between you and us. So it's also nice. Okay, then see you next week.
Bye.